I'm Riley McHugh with sonsofpenn.com, and we are in the presence of a legend. If you've ever been to a Phillies game, either at the Vet or here at Citizens Bank Park, you have heard his voice. The longest-tenured PA announcer in the MLB, Dan Baker. Dan, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate it.
Now batting for the Phillies, Riley McHugh.
If only. So how did you get into the field of PA announcing? Was it something you knew growing up you always wanted to do?
Well, Riley, I was a pretty good athlete as a young guy, and like a lot of American boys and now girls growing up, I had visions of being a professional athlete. But as happens with most of us, you know, even though I had a pretty good athletic career, you know, you begin to realize that, you know, it's one thing to excel in the community, you know, in school. It's quite another to play at a professional level. I used to mimic some of the announcers, you know, that I listened to growing up. And one of them that I mimicked, Riley, was a fellow named Dave Zinkoff. He was the voice of the Warriors, later the Sixers. And he was very entertaining. And so I would imitate him, and other people would say, man, you sound just like him, or, you know, and I thought, maybe this would be an alternative
Could
someday.
you still do his imitation today, do you think?
Sure.
Will you give it?
And at forward for the 76ers, from the University of Massachusetts, the captain, number 6, Julius Irving. He had this
awesome.
like screeching kind of a thing.
Today, Phillies host the St. Louis Cardinals. The National League stands right now.
What advice would you give younger people trying to either be a PA announcer or just break into the industry of sports journalism, sports communication?
Well, of course, I had a great passion for what I did. I believed wholeheartedly in what I was doing, and I did everything with a great deal of enthusiasm. And of course, there's only so many of these jobs around. And when I started out, I mean, I just didn't become the Phillies PA announcer at first. I would keep statistics for NFL games, and you know, I'd make like $15 a game. I didn't make very much, but I met a lot of other announcers, and I would sit down with visiting NFL radio and TV play-by-play guys, and I would spot for them. And as I was sitting there assisting them, I would listen closely, and I would try to emulate some of the better qualities that I observed in their announcing styles. And if there was an aspect of their announcing that I didn't think was that good, of course I
Wouldn't do that.
try to eliminate that. You know, I go through my scripts. I read through carefully. I want to. I don't want to read. You know, as an announcer, you don't want to be a reader, you know, and bore people. Hopefully, you know when to pause for effect, when to emphasize for effect, when to talk louder, when to not talk as loud. There's a lot of different nuances in doing this well.
How did your style evolve? Like you're talking about when you know when to pause. Was there ever a time where that was really difficult for you?
Riley, I could always emote well. I always knew, you know, I know the guy. You know, I played a lot of sports, and I knew the game, and you know, being such a fan, you know, I knew the fine points of the game. So I knew it was appropriate to cheer or raise your voice, and when not to.
You have a great voice.
Oh, thank you. But you know something? I never thought I had the basso profundo. You know, some people have this deep, resonant voice. You know, I remember John Facenda growing up. The late, great Harry Callis here. So I never put my voice in that class.
Now batting for the Phillies, number 51, catcher Carlos Ruiz.
Take us through a typical Dan Baker day. Say there's a Phillies night game.
I get in usually 2 hours. Our reporting time is 2 hours before. When I did the Eagles for all of those years, I did the PA announcing for the Eagles for 29 years. It was like a 3 hour in advance report time. And one of the things that, of course, is your responsibility as a PA announcer is knowing how to say all the names for both teams. So I'll look over the rosters. Now, usually the home team, the Phillies, I'm familiar with. There might be a guy that was called up, or something like that. If we traded for somebody, and if I'm not, completely familiar, I'll ask how to say it. I could ask our PR staff, broadcasters. Sometimes I'll ask the manager or the coach or even the player himself, and I do the same thing with the visiting team. So I'm not going to be as familiar with the visiting team, but once again, I'll ask either a visiting PR guy, broadcaster, coach, manager, or player, and I make sure that I can say everybody's name on the roster correctly.
Yeah.
When I'm on the field, and another thing I try to do, I try to make eye contact with the people in the stands. There could be 45,000 people out there, but I'm looking around and as if I'm talking to them, because I want it to be kind of personal, as
like we're
looking
sitting here.
Yes, yes. No.
If you had to say your favorite Phillies player of all time to announce, who would it be? And can you please answer in your announcing voice?
Well, there's a couple that come to mind. But of course, one with whom I co-host a radio show and have for the past 8 years, the Bull. Number 19, left fielder Greg Luzinski. That's one. Another one, number 12, second baseman Mickey Morandini.
How does it feel to be the longest tenured PA announcer in the MLB?
It's not something you think about a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's just so much fun. It's such an important part of my life. It gives me so much happiness. I wouldn't know what to do without it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've enjoyed it so much since my appointment. Bill Giles hired me in the fall of 1971 to begin the Phillies baseball season, April 1972. So this is year number 45 coming up, and if the Phillies will have me, and my health holds out, and I'm in pretty good health.
Yes.
Another 6 years, and I will have announced the Phillies for 50 years, and I believe it is correct to say that I'd only be the third PA announcer in the history of Major League Baseball to announce for 50 years or more with one team.
Yeah.
Bob Shepard of the Yankees being one, and the only other PA announcer in the history of Major League Baseball to do it for 50 years or more, Pat Piper of the Chicago Cubs, 1916 through 1974 at Wrigley Field. Not that I intend really to stop there.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to.
I would hit that like when I'm 75 years old. Hopefully I will be able to accomplish that milestone. Hopefully I'll be able to continue beyond that. But at a minimum, I would hope to achieve that.
Dan, thank you so much for sitting down with Sons of Penn. I'm Riley McHugh, and I'll see you again next week.